Howdy, and welcome to Book Your Give Here. We're Travel That Gives. I'm Lulu Lima, your chief travel guru. I hope this episode of Dream Now Travel Later inspires you to travel, and I invite you to give us the opportunity to help plan your next memorable trip. So grab your popcorn and enjoy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Wanderlust Wednesday. Today we have a very special guest, something that is going to fill all of our bellies with lots of yummies. And for most of us, it is lunchtime, so that we're watching this. But if you're watching this at any other time, you're going to get hungry. I'm just going to let you know in advance. So we have Marco Frank with Flanders, Belgium Visitors Bureau with us today. He is my contact to everyone on the ground. He gives me all of the insights and everything that you guys all need to know when I make your itinerary. So I'm super excited to introduce him. I don't want to take away from his time. And so the floor is yours, Marco.
All right. Thank you so much, Lily. What a nice, warm welcome. Glad to be here. Glad to talk to you guys a little bit about Flanders, Belgium. So my name is Marco Frank, and I am the trade manager based in New York. But as you can see right now from the surrounding, actually not in the office, but in the home office, still social distancing. But let's get excited about Flanders, Belgium. First, we want to take a quick look at the geography, at the agenda, and then let's talk about the geography, a little about the art and heritage, our gastronomy, active wellness, active well-being, some historic World War I sites, off-the-beaten-path experiences, and a lot more. Time is short, so let's just dive into the geography. So where or what is Flanders? So, of course, people think, oh yeah, that's Flanders on The Simpsons. Yeah, sort of, right? Correct. But Flanders is more than that. Flanders is actually a region in Belgium. If you want to compare to anything in the United States, call it a state. That's what it is. 6 major cities in the destination: Brussels, Antwerp, Bruges, Ghent, Leuven, and Mechelen. Population size about 7.8 million. In terms of also the overall size, roughly the size of Connecticut. So let's just dive into our art and heritage. So if you've ever wondered, like, why should I travel to Belgium? What's there to see? Should I go there for safaris or for alpine climbing? Unfortunately, no. You do come for the art and heritage. You want to see the old Europe. The old Europe in a positive sense, where history is still very much omnipresent. And here you can see the Grand Place in Brussels. You can see Bruges, the canals, the boat rides. So that's a lot of people why they want to come and see old Europe, the well-preserved Europe. They might also come maybe for some of the old artwork in our destination. There's a lot of still artwork available in the museums and the churches. Here you can see the Ghent altarpiece. That was actually made famous, quote unquote, again, because I mean it's always been famous because it's one of the first Northern Renaissance painting by a 2014 Hollywood movie. And yes, you guessed it right, the movie is called The Monuments Man. So if you do remember,
that was a really good movie, by the way, everybody. If you haven't watched it, you really should.
Yes. So watch it again. It's actually not a made-up movie. It's actually based on facts that really happened. So the Nazis took the artwork, wanted to destroy it. The American GIs had to come in. So basically, pretty much the whole story is true. The only thing that's not true, it was not really George Clooney that went in World War II. So that is just Hollywood. It was not George Clooney. But you also see other artists like Peter Paul Rubens. So still very much present, the old artwork, art galleries in a destination. But if you think now it's like, oh my God, just old stuff? No, of course, modern art, modern architecture. What you see here is the port house in Antwerp. So still very much gives you an eclectic mix of the old and the new.
And that's awesome, right? Because you have so many different things to see. But one of my favorite parts of this whole area, which is where I was telling everybody, you're now going to start getting hungry. This is truly a gastronomy adventure.
Absolutely, Lulu. So when we travel, we have to eat. And I'm saying we
Yes.
have to eat because technically, theoretically, you could decide to book a 1 week diet trip and just diet for the whole week. But in my personal opinion, this is very bad advice. Just don't do that. So Belgium is known for beer, for chocolates, also what I would call like the usual suspects. So hopefully everybody knows about that. Also
Yes.
great Belgian waffles that everybody loves to eat. That's on the next slide. Also on the fries. Also mussels in Brussels. So it is really like a food lover's paradise. We feed you well.
It really is. And so before I go to the next slide, I really want to talk to everybody about Michelin star restaurants, because I feel like that's something that is going to be super, super important. Everybody always wants to go to the most famous and, oh my God, I want to be in the know. So this is the place to be. I will help you get all of those reservations. We just need to narrow down which restaurants we're going to go to.
Right, exactly. Because apart from what I said, like the usual suspects, we got the high-end fine dining restaurants, the Michelin star restaurants. But now that I've given you a very quick overview of the gastronomy, which is like going slide by slide, let's just dive into a little bit more the details, the chocolates. Like over 320 artisanal chocolate makers. And the fun thing is, you might say like, well, chocolate, so what? I go to my local Safeway supermarket and I buy chocolate.
No, it's
but
not
that's not the authentic
same
experience, because in Belgium you can do so much more. What you do is you sign up for a chocolate workshop. You make your own chocolates. You sample your own chocolates. You do a chocolate and beer pairing. So you really indulge in all those chocolate experiences that you cannot have in a domestic supermarket here. So that's why you go.
No, and all those chocolate workshops and tours and things like that, we can customize them for you so that you can also have them private. So if it's only just you and those in your party, we absolutely can make that happen.
And then if you look at the next slide, you will also see why Belgium is the perfect combination for some of the themes that we've already talked about. Remember, we talked about the art, the history. You actually have a chocolate shop in a very historic building. And if you look over the shoulder of the woman at the counter, you might actually see some famous little in terms of not tall, French person in the background.
You mean Mr. Napoleon?
That is Napoleon, and there's a reason why the Napoleon is actually in the chocolate store. And the reason is that this house in Antwerp used to be Napoleon's residence. So you can experience chocolate in a very historic building.
That's so awesome. And so we talk about Belgian beer as well. So there's, you guys are really well known for this. It's awesome, right? So you guys not only do beer and chocolate pairings, but you also do beer and food pairings as well. And you've got lots of local breweries.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, beer is the go-to beverage. It's been around for a very long time. I mean, mankind, the debate is what was first? Was it beer or bread? And some people say actually we invented beer first and then we learned how to make bread like 10,000 years ago. But Belgium has really excelled in the beer brewing, really lots of different flavors. There's more information coming up about the beers, but you can visit breweries, beer gastronomy, beer pairings with food. Right now, if I have my count right, about 160 breweries, about 16 to 1,700 different beers, 20 million hectoliters. You might think like, my God, what's a hectoliter? So a hectoliter is 100 liters. So feel free to convert it to gallons. That's merely your little homework.
So that's quite a bit, right? So 4 gallons makes a car made from basically 4 liters makes 1 gallon. So
right.
We're gonna need at least a couple of months just to try them all. Right. So definitely, if you are a beer aficionado, let's coordinate. Let's do some tastings and have you guys really experience some of this, because this is absolutely a top adventure.
And here's maybe one important thing we should not fail to mention, because not everybody likes beer. Certain people say like, no, I like wine. I'm not into beer. And in my past experience, that's primarily the case because they've only tasted Bud Light in the past. And I think, like, Bud Light is beer. I don't like beer. I am with you. I totally agree with you. But Belgian beer is very, very different. You have so many different types and styles of beer. You have sweet beers, sour beers. You got mild beers, hoppy beers, non-hoppy beers, fruit beers, wine beers, and champagne beers. So there's this whole variety and range of different beers out there. And I've had friends over in Belgium who say, like, no, I just don't like beer. So I said, try it, and they loved it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about then the Michelin star dining, because that's definitely Belgium excels in that. And yes, just in case you had any doubts, the guide is actually from the tire company. So in the past, people have said, there's Michelin star dining. I don't know. I have no idea how many there are. Why don't you tell me? So we have 128 Michelin star rated restaurants. So people are surprised when you hear this number. You're kidding, right? No, I'm not. It is this high, impressive number. Wow.
It is. It is quite impressive. And that's why I made this comment much earlier on, because those 128 restaurants, while there's plenty of them around in Belgium, obviously having a reservation and having somebody who knows how to get you in, especially during your limited dates during travel, is very important. So we want to make sure that we take care of you in that aspect. But what does it take to be a Michelin star restaurant?
It takes a lot of persistence. It takes a lot of effort, dedication, and it's skill, of course. Because
Yes.
They are really very strict in their analysis. They almost have. I was reading a little bit up how they do all the testing and mystery shopping and dining. It's almost like even within the organization, like a firewall where.
And to get to that 3-star, it really needs to be exceptional.
Absolutely. So let's maybe a little bit of an educational background. Michelin star dining, the historic background. I think a lot of people don't really know where the history of the guide comes from. Like, why does a tire manufacturer, Michelin Tire, publish a restaurant guide? A lot of people don't know the background of the story. And so when we talk about the Michelin guide, we typically talk about the Michelin red guides, because they're red.
Right.
And they've been published since 1900. And of course, Michelin being a French tire company, the first ones were published in France to boost tire sales. And the Belgian edition has been around since 1904. So like the inspectors were completely anonymous. So there's even within the organization firewalls. And the star rating was actually developed a little bit later on. And basically, again, why develop a dining guide by a tire company? Well, basically, when the first guide came out in 1900, there were about 4,000 registered cars in all of France. So if you're a tire manufacturer, you sold, assuming you had 100% market share, then you sold 16,000 tires plus the spare. Is that enough tires to make your tire company survive? No. You have to sell more
people
tires.
have to use the tires so that they can be worn out.
You have to drive. You have to drive around. You have to wear out your tires. How do you get the French to wear out the tires? You tell them where to eat.
Exactly.
And that's the background. So originally,
very smart of them, I have to say.
Absolutely, ingenious. So originally, the star rating breaks down into, so what's the 1 star in the original meaning? So it's a very good restaurant in its category. And it basically meant, in connection again to driving, it was worth a stop on a tour that you're on.
Right.
A 2-star is excellent cooking, worth a detour. So you're on a tour, but it's just a little off road.
Just a little off the beaten path.
It's worth the detour to get to that 2-star restaurant.
Yeah.
And 3-star is really exceptional cuisine. It's worth a special journey just by itself. So it's worth a just trip to the restaurant by itself. So that's the original meaning of the star rating.
And that's super awesome, because the really getting these stars is very difficult. As many of you guys know, I went to culinary school and I studied in Switzerland for hospitality management. So my background is all in this food and beverage and how to attain one of these stars. And so I remember all of the work that went into it and everything else. So the people who really work behind those kitchens to do all of that, they're as passionate as I am about travel. So it's just amazing. But let's talk about, being in Belgium and obviously you guys having 152 of the Michelin stars. I mean, within those 128 restaurants, it's awesome.
Right. And what is also like very important to point out is that it does not cost an arm and a leg to eat in one of those restaurants. I'll give you a very concrete, specific example. My last Michelin star dinner in the US was in Sonoma County. I went there with a friend. Our joint dinner bill together was $800 for 2 people. So basically per person, $400. It's a 1 Michelin star rated restaurant in Sonoma County where we went. My last Michelin star dinner in Belgium was at a restaurant in Bruges, also 1 star. Dinner was €59. So
that's a big difference.
€59. If you convert to US dollars at the current exchange rate, it's a little bit over like $65.
Yep.
I mean, based in New York, that's my lunch bill at McDonald's, going to lunch.
Now, what is somebody who has all of this Michelin star cuisine in his background eating at McDonald's?
I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to come up with a comparison here. What $65 gets you in New York? Not much.
Yes, of course. I totally understand. So,
and as you can see, it's also backed up by, the number of restaurants that we have, by the hotel management schools. There is just a tremendous amount of infrastructure, training, talent out there. It just doesn't come from nothing.
No, it doesn't. And it's absolutely amazing. And you can see the art of the food itself in these pictures that are coming across. It is the destination itself is world class. So, and you've got a number of different culinary events, not only in Antwerp, in Brussels, and also in Bruges, but and then you have some beer gastronomy. So
gastronomy, where you combine beer and food, and you match the beer, and there's a little bit of a science to that. How you want to do the beer pairing? If you start with a darker beer or a lighter beer, if you start with a heavy beer or not. So there's really a combination and a science to that. How you combine all those different foods and beers.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I love to do, as you guys know, in terms of my itineraries, is that I like to create either a private cooking class or some type of opportunity for you to immerse in the local, in basically everything that is local. So I would pair you up with somebody, maybe a chef at home, in their home or in their restaurant, and you have them teach you. So certainly all of these opportunities are available and gives you great local immersion because you get to work with the locals who are doing this as well.
Right. And maybe also just to point out that the scene, so to speak, the culinary scene is constantly innovating and changing.
Yes.
Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, quote unquote worse. It's nothing bad, but I'll give you one example. One of my favorite restaurants, 3 Michelin stars, unfortunately, it closed a year and a half ago. And the reason why it closed is the chef said, I'm 46, I have 3 Michelin stars. And I achieved it within, I can remember, like 3 or 4 years. Where else can I go? And then sometimes you find like they think it's a little bit too restrictive. And he wanted to be innovative and break out from the routine. So I said, well, so what? I've achieved it. I have 3 Michelin stars, so what? Just close it down. And he opened a bunch of other restaurants. And again, he's like free. And he might already get some Michelin stars again for that restaurant that he opened up again. So we'll see how long it takes them to get 3 stars for the new restaurant.
And as chefs, we all get to our height in our career. So, and I think that happens to a lot of us in most of our industries. When we reach the height of our career, we go, well, what do we do from here? So I love the fact that this particular chef was very innovative and just went, I achieved greatness. Now let's start again.
Right, exactly.
So that's super awesome. And so here, lots of pictures of different great foods. Obviously, everything, from our fries to our waffles to our fresh vegetables to, outside dining or inside dining. It's just amazing. So, and again, everything, how it's plated, it's an art. That's why it's called culinary arts, right?
Exactly. So let's talk about then the active wellness portion, because we eat a lot, so we also got to burn off the calories somehow.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Of course, the word wellness, has a little bit of flexible meaning. Some people think, oh, it's just going to the spa and getting those treatments and the facials and so on, which of course you can do, but we're not really, like a Caribbean island where you go to like a nice resort and get pampered and treated. You typically don't come for that in Belgium. But also very interesting, just in case you wondered, the word spa actually does come from Belgium, because it's the city of Spa. Right? Technically, it's more like a village of Spa in the south of Belgium with the thermal hot springs. That actually gave name to the word spa. So a spa comes from the Belgian city of Spa. So
that's so awesome. I learned something new today. Yay!
Right. But for us, it's more like the cycling, active, outdoorsy type of activity. And the cycling is beautiful in our destination simply because it's something for every skill level, from the leisurely to the intermediate to the hardcore cycling. So depending on what type of cycling you do, it's out there, you can do it. You can do hardcore road biking like you can see here, or leisurely along the canals. It's flat, it's super easy. Just rent a bike for 2 or 3 hours, pack up the kids and the family. And then you're on a dedicated cycling road networks. As you can see, it's all signposted here. It's super easy to navigate. And the whole network.
So that's also really important.
Absolutely. Ease of use, flat. And as you can see, the whole network is about 7,500 miles long. You can plan your routes in advance. You can use an app for that. You can use, if you prefer classic maps, of course, still do that. Or you can just start to paddle and get lost and explore the neighborhood.
Exactly. And one of the things is that you don't need to bring your bike from the US. We can organize it so that once you do arrive in your hotel, that you actually have a bike for your trips. And as you're moving from one hotel to another and going into different areas, you don't have to take that bike with you. We will have new bikes for you at every single destination.
Absolutely. And there's all different types of bikes available. So if you wanted to do more like the electrical assist bike, you can do that. You can do city bikes, you can do touring bikes, you can do race bikes, depending what fits your bill.
If you want to do a bike tour or a bike area that is focused on beer, you might want an electric bike.
Yes. Or the timing is also important when you combine beer and biking. You first do the biking and then you do the beer, not the other way around. But
Absolutely.
as you just pointed out, there's a lot of thematic approached bike routes, beer, art, history, architecture, for beginners, for families. It's for everyone.
Yep. And of course, you also have long distance cycling, right? So if you guys want to start in one area and end in another, we can have your luggage and everything else transported, and we can have them meet you at the other side.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the whole long distance network in Belgium is actually part of a pan-European network, cycling network. So for the ones that are really doing this hardcore, in Belgium, there's 10 routes. It's about almost 1,000 miles long. But by all means, if you want to connect to something in France or in Holland or Germany, the whole European network is real interconnected. The infrastructure is great. Over 400 hotels that are bicycle friendly, which basically means there's storage there for your bike, there's maps there, there's tools there for you to repair your bike if you need anything. So the whole infrastructure is basically geared towards those types of needs. And of course, you also need a bed, so you do have the comfortable bed to rest your legs and your head.
Yeah, and that's super important. So, but moving on, we have one amazing piece in Belgium that many of the other countries don't have. And those are historic World War I sites. And so I had asked Mark Marcos, to put in some information in here because I know how much of you guys are history buffs. And I thought that this was a great opportunity to kind of have this conversation.
Absolutely. So, as you probably know from world history, World War I happened between 1914 and 1918. We had a big centenary during that 4-year period. But of course, the infrastructure, the museums, the trenches are still there. So you can still revisit those. And we had a lot of traction in the last couple of years, also with people combining World War II and World War I.
Yes.
Because with the anniversary of Normandy landing beaches, unfortunately with Corona now, a lot of the victory celebrations, because May 45, now 75 years, did not happen, but a lot of people had planned on combining those different destinations. So it's a great opportunity to find a lot within the same area in Europe.
Yep, absolutely. And you guys, because of the train system, you can easily also hop over and do a day trip into Luxembourg, where you have the Battle of the Bulges, and you can kind of have a little bit of both sides, so to speak.
Absolutely. So what other off the beaten path experiences do we have? Just a little bit of a teaser, because a lot of people are now looking, okay, maybe I've been to Brussels, I've been to Bruges. What else is there to see?
Yes.
Well, apart from the cities, there's also the countryside. The countryside meaning like the coast and the Ardennes. So the geography is great. The beaches are easy to reach. It's very relaxing. It's friendly, family friendly. As you can see, you can also go hiking there. You can wander around on the beaches. You can even do sunbathing. Believe it or not, this is not like a Caribbean beach here. This is actually a Belgian beach. Believe it or not.
You can sunbathe with some chocolate. Exactly. That would be awesome.
But don't leave the chocolate out in the sun too long. You can look
who says it'll be in the belly?
Here's an interesting picture, actually. A lot of people think, it's just like a couple of horses in the water. So actually, what you see is here an intangible UNESCO World Heritage, which is shrimp fishing on horseback. So that is a UNESCO World Heritage, an intangible, just like the beer culture in Belgium.
How awesome. And this is something that you could see up close and really experience. And when you're traveling, because it is a family-friendly area and activity, you can actually use it for life school. So I call life school basically, instead of learning from a textbook, you actually go and experience everything in life. That are things that have happened in history, and you go have it firsthand. Your kids won't ever forget the actual things that they've learned.
And of course, you do have like a lot of art installations. So there are art galleries, a lot of also open air art, but also very good restaurants, very good bars, Michelin star rated restaurants at the coast. Because when you run around in the sand all day, you might get hungry, and like, no worries, we got you covered. On the other hand, if you're more a fan of a little hilly area, then the Flemish Ardennes might be the right place to go for hiking or biking. The tranquil, quiet. You find still the villages out there. So the rolling hills, the pastures with the cows, and just be out there. So here, a little farmland and the hills. But you also do have nice forest areas here. That's actually a forest south of Brussels. It's actually relatively close to Brussels. So you do have, lots of natures out there, nature reserves, national parks, national forests that are good for walking, hiking. And then another off the beaten path might be the castles.
Yeah, most people don't think of Belgium as having so many castles. And I think that this is an awesome opportunity here, because you can actually really explore over 3,000 of them.
Right, exactly. Although only 400 are open to the public, but I think 400 castles in one vacation trip is still a high task to accomplish.
You can always take a picture from the street.
Everywhere, like in a city center, like here you have the castle of Gravenstein, which is right in the city center of Ghent. You have castles on the outskirts. You really have castles that are home to art galleries, restaurants here. So a tremendous amount really that is available for you to visit. And then last but not least, if you wanted to stay in the castle, here as well, there are hotels in castles as well.
And that's super awesome. So one of the things that I have learned quite a bit is about your comics. This was really new to me. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about this.
All right, so comics are very, very big in Belgium. It's really like part of everyday life. And you think like nowadays, comics is something for little kids, for like preschoolers in elementary school, and they read their Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, and then that's all the comics we do. It's like, no, in Belgium it's not uncommon that adults read comics. Print circulation is actually increasing. And a lot of comics originate in Belgium, like the Smurfs, Tintin, Lucky Luke. So there's a lot of comics out there. There's comic museums there, comic walks. So in the background you can see like a house mural. So you can actually do a comic walk in Brussels and visit all those different murals, different comic museums. So it's really a big, big culture. Also at the airport, actually, a couple of comic installations from Tintin. So it's a very big part of our experience in the destination.
That's awesome. I have to give a shout out to somebody. My high school English teacher for a number of different classes. She is a Smurfs aficionado.
Oh,
and
great.
I had not known about the Smurfs and Belgium together. I now need to send her there. So Miss Deborah Bufumo, if you are listening, this is your shout out.
And the Smurfs are only 62 years old this year. They were invented in 1958.
Look at that. So I certainly will make sure that she knows that. So obviously we go into the different museums that you guys have, and you have a museum just about for everything.
Yes, I mean the museum landscape is wonderful. It's amazing how many different types of museums there are. Brussels alone is home to over 80 museums. So if you want to make the museum as a part of your vacation experience, by all means you can go to the comic museum that we just talked about, the Diamond Museum in Antwerp, Auto World and Train World in Brussels. Train World is interesting because Belgium was home to the first railroad in continental Europe after the UK, which of course is not part of continental Europe as we've always heard from the Brits, because it's
right.
Britain and Europe. So in continental Europe, Belgium had the first railroad. If you want to learn something about fries and the history of fries, the chocolate, the beer, fashion museum, art museums, tons of museums out there, and one that I always wanted to highlight is the Royal Institute of Natural Sciences. It's, so to speak, the Belgian edition of the Smithsonian, and in terms of its international ranking, it's ranked number 3 in the world.
Oh wow!
So great natural science museum.
How awesome is that?
So let's also venture out a little bit off the beaten path for our beverages.
Yes.
So if you think like Belgium is an awesome beer destination, you're absolutely right on. But wait, there's more than just beer. There's also Belgian wine, and there's Belgian whiskey, and Belgian Geneva. So wine, why is wine awesome? Because partially of climate change, it's getting warmer.
Yes.
And so the Belgian grapes do get more sun. And by the way, wine has been grown there since Roman times. So there's a long, long tradition of wine. And also in terms of like champagne, for example, that goes along with wine. The Champagne region in France is just south of the Belgian border. But it's the same valley, the same soil. And the French side is actually getting a little bit too hot these days. So technically the Belgian champagne is now better than the French one, because it's the right climate, the right grapes. But we just can't call it champagne because it's a protected trademark name. So we just have to call it like Belgian sparkling wine or whatever.
Well, maybe as climate change and obviously the land itself changes, maybe you guys can get a little bit of that Champagne region name and be part of it.
Absolutely.
So wouldn't that be great? So let's talk about getting here.
Right. So now that we've teased you about all those great highlights, and you're urging and itching, like, my God, I gotta get there. When can I go? Right now, like if you want to book a flight for tomorrow, unless you have a European passport, you can't really go because of COVID-19. So
Right.
the airlines, the airport connections that I have here, as you know, are all pre-COVID-19. Air travel is still very much not happening, and we'll see which routes come back when. But you used to be able to get very easily from the East Coast to Belgium, JFK, Newark, New Jersey, Chicago, Washington, and Atlanta.
Yep.
And then from the Canadian side, also Montreal and Toronto. But the beautiful
Yep.
thing is because we're so super close to everything else in Europe. Take the Paris, the London, the Amsterdam, the Cologne in Germany. All those four major cities are less than 2 hours away, less than 2 hours. So if you don't have a direct connection to Brussels, you can easily fly into London, Paris, take the train, and in under 2 hours, you're right in the heart of Europe.
Yeah, and so those are really great points to make, because Belgium can be combined with other cities or other destinations within Europe if we're doing a 14-day trip or something along those lines. For those of you guys who are doing something a little less, like 7, I'd say we focus on Belgium and stay those 7 days within the country, because there's so much to see. But for those of you guys who have a little bit more time, definitely we can certainly add another country, or just expand your opportunities in terms of what you're seeing and what you're experiencing. Everything obviously is based on what we want to do, but post-COVID right now, let's look at making plans for 2021. So if you are excited to go and you want to start planning, this is the time now to start making those itineraries, putting things together, because that's where we really need to be.
Absolutely. I mean, it's never too early to plan a trip. Some encourage you to procrastinate, but I'm just trying to think of myself because 2 years ago, I finally took a trip that I had planned for 20 years. And then finally last year, 2 years ago, I managed to go. And just because I couldn't go 20 years ago, it was not like, okay, it's off the radar screen, let's forget about it, not go. I just kept it in, it kept on my bucket list, and eventually it happened. So if you think it's like, oh my God, it's too bad, I can't go now, I can't experience, don't worry, eventually it will happen. And then ideally in 21, or maybe even in fall or winter, because there's also great Christmas markets that you can experience if you want to do like a Christmas market cruise. Absolutely possible.
Yes, and all of that is. So if you guys are ready to kind of take it to that next level, I'm certainly here to help you. So with that, I want to say thank you so much, Marco. I absolutely loved this presentation. This was super awesome. I appreciate your time. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell everybody?
Well, I just would like to thank you for your time that you made to watch and listen to this broadcast. If you have any questions, by all means, use your favorite travel advisor, Lulu, and reach out to her. She'll be there to help you and take care of your needs. Thank you.
Awesome. I so much appreciate that. Thank you so much again. Namaste, everybody. Until the next time.